I recently saw Spirited, a movie released late in 2022. I'm not here to review the film. However, a single line from the film inspired this short video. Toward the end of the film, the character Jacob Marley, played by Patrick Page, said, quote, "Your sacrifice would have no meaning if it had no consequence," end quote. Spirited was written by Sean Anders and John Morris, and this one line made me think about the sacrifices I have made to inform people about abrupt, irreversible climate change, leading to loss of habitat for human animals. Let's go back to early 2014 when I was invited to Winnipeg, Canada by Lama Gerry Kopelow. Kopelow asked me to participate in a retreat at the Dharma Center he had founded several years earlier. The 3-day retreat in early February 2014 included a series of meditations, and it provided an excellent follow-up to the grief recovery workshop I had attended 2 weeks earlier. Kopelow was joined by his friend and colleague, John Jardin. Jardin is a world authority on end-of-life meditations, and he hosted me in his home on a subsequent speaking tour. For the first and last time ever, Kopelow organized speaking events for me on this trip in February 2014. Buddhists are typically reluctant to proselytize about any message, but Kopelow viewed my message as an important one. As a result, he organized public speaking events and an interview with a local radio station. The interview was held in the station's recording studio, and it became the first of several interviews to which I have submitted with that host. The interview in the studio offered a respite from the cold weather. In fact, the entire time I was in Winnipeg, it was colder in Winnipeg than on the surface of Mars. Pipes were bursting, and the new plastic-threaded Canadian currency was disintegrating in people's pockets. How inconvenient to have your pipes burst and then have your money disintegrate, thus negating your ability to pay for repairs. We took a few breaks each day from the intense meditations. During each of these breaks, most of the participants spent a few minutes putting on abundant clothing before going outside, and then taking the time to remove the clothing once inside. Dressing and undressing consumed most of the scheduled time for each break, so I simply spent the time outside in my long-sleeved shirt. This seemed more practical than piling on my clothes. Once outside, another of the participants would ask what the heck I was doing wearing so few clothes in the bitter cold. My response? I learned quickly from all of you about Buddhism. I want to feel it. All of it. As a result, I quickly became the least favorite participant in the group. I was living off-grid in New Mexico for about 5 years before the meditations, from May 2009 until February 2014. I created and lived at the off-grid homestead in southern rural New Mexico as an alternative to the monetary system, which I realized was driving Homo sapiens to extinction. As a result, I stopped accepting paychecks in pursuit of a simple life focused on living close to the planet that sustains us all. The betrayal from my friends, colleagues, co-workers, and family was immediate and persistent. Only much later did I learn about the best-kept secret in climate science, the aerosol masking effect. The inconvenient timing associated with my learning about aerosol masking is a primary reason I continue to write and speak about this important phenomenon. My knowledge of aerosol masking also allows me to stop judging others for their lifestyle choices, although it doesn't have the same impact on those who judge me for trading in my off-grid life for a more conventional life in a New England village. I continued to live off-grid in southern New Mexico for a long and torturous 2.5 years after the meditations. In July 2016, I moved to Belize. Once in Central America, I lived off-grid for another 2.5 years. I returned with my partner to the divided states of America upon her sister's diagnosis of multiple myeloma. We moved to Central Florida to facilitate her dad's diagnosis with Alzheimer's disease, and then his transition into a care facility. After failing to convince her siblings that conventional medical care is a good idea, my partner and I abandoned the ship of betrayal and moved to Vermont in the name of self-care. We did not move here to extend our lives, as I have reported previously in this space. On the topic of betrayal, consider, for example, the vow I took upon getting married a few decades ago. For my partner of more than 35 years, until death do we part, meant death of my income and the many other privileges associated with being a professor on campus. After all, fewer than 1 in 200 people with a PhD in the natural sciences become full professors. Essentially none get there before turning 40, as I did. Once my principles led me to pursue a simple life, rooted in love for the living planet, I lost most of my privileges. Loss of my spouse followed quickly thereafter. As it turns out, my sacrifice had consequences, including abandonment, betrayal, divorce, and a coordinated defamation campaign. Leaving campus life was the worst mistake of my life, so far. Let's go back to Patrick Page playing Jacob Marley as he said, quote, "Your sacrifice would have no meaning if it had no consequence," end quote. This line from Spirited, written by Sean Anders and John Morris, gives me great pause. Has my sacrifice had consequence? I would argue that my sacrifice has had many consequences, almost all of them negative. A coordinated defamation campaign destroyed my public life specifically because I quoted peer-reviewed papers and the scholars who produced them. This campaign led to loss of friends, colleagues, and co-workers. Very importantly, it led to loss of familial relations. My dad died believing I was a sexual predator. My remaining family members still believe this nonsense. I will not be making a comeback. Can you imagine Julian Assange, Chelsea Manning, or Edward Snowden making a comeback in the public sphere? Of course not. I'm less well known than any of the three, and my days as a public figure are long behind me. Such are the consequences of telling the truth in a culture based on lies. Would I take another path, given the opportunity? It's difficult to say. I could have easily stayed on campus, drawing a six-figure salary. This would have allowed me access to university attorneys, and therefore offered protection against the coordinated defamation campaign. I could have retained my integrity with support from my institution. On the other hand, remaining on campus undoubtedly would have had negative consequences I am unable to observe from here. I would have missed out on numerous adventures, including experiences that can only be had by living in a poor country such as Belize. My campus life, which seems mundane in retrospect, would have been very comfortable. In any event, there is no going back. Regardless of the Jackson Browne line about it being easier to change the past, that's a lot easier sung than done. Thank you for watching, liking, and subscribing to this channel. If you subscribe, please click the bell so you will be notified about future videos. Feel free to share this video and become a member of this channel for additional perks at as little as 99 cents per month. Mostly, though, thanks for watching.